So I'm making this video to show you how to play our new board game, which is called GeneExpress. It's based on one of the most fundamental processes in biology, which you may have remembered from high school or whatever, which is DNA makes RNA makes proteins. Proteins, the cell need proteins to do all kinds of things. And those three steps are the big ones, but there's more steps in that process actually. And in this game, we've broken down the way a cell makes proteins into 9 steps or 9 levels. And those are described down here. And we also have included a playbook, what we call the biology playbook, that explains this process. You don't need to know any biology to play the game, but if you want to learn, you can learn while you're doing this. So we've broken it down to 9 steps, where first the cell gets a signal, and then things happen, signals get passed along, and finally you get to DNA, and then you make an RNA, and then you make a protein. And in the game, the goal is to actually do that, to take your figures, move them through all these levels along these paths that you can see here, and until you get to the end. And whoever gets all their figures to the end first wins the game. They've made 3 proteins in this case. So the number of players you can play with 2 people, you can play up to 6 people. The number of players depends on how many figures you have on the board. If you're 6 people, you only have 2. If you're only 2 players, you start with 5. I'm going to keep it simple now and just use 3 for an example. And this is how you set up the board at the beginning. So you'll notice that at the beginning, it's kind of hard to move. You want to move down these paths. It's kind of hard because there's obstacles in the way. You have to set things up. So you put 3 of these markers at the top of each path. At the top also you have, in the very first connection between paths, you have this yellow blocking stick. Those you're going to remove as you go along. At the bottom of the board, there's 3 cards for each path. They look like this. You can see on the back you have the color of the path. And there's 3 different types. There's a type that looks like this, a type that looks like this, and one that looks like this. And at the beginning, it doesn't matter how they're arranged, just try to have one of each pattern showing, three of each pattern showing. So there's 1, 2, 3 of those, 1, 2, 3 of those, and then also 3 of those. And you just, within the stack, it doesn't matter, that can be random. And also which is on which path doesn't matter at the beginning. Just have show 3 of each type. There's also a blocking stone, which looks like this. And there's also cards that help you move and get onto the board, which look like this. And I'll just show you, we'll go through and I'll show you how this works. So you notice these cards have a shape and a color that's really important in the game. Okay, so when you start, the players are over here. And again, the goal is going to be trying to move from all the way from the left all the way to the right. And whenever you get on the board, you're going to always move following the same. You're going to stay on the same shape unless you do something to change it. So if you're here, you're going to move down like this. If you're here, you can move like this. And then you get to the bottom and you're stuck. There's no place to move. There's a way then you can jump to the next top. And there's also a way to change the shape that I'll talk about in a minute. Okay. The moving part is the last. When your turn is up, the moving part is the very last thing that you're going to do in the move. Okay? So at the beginning of the game, each player gets 5 cards like this. 5 of these cards. You shuffle them, you hand them out randomly. Each player gets 5 cards. And you can keep those cards or you can play them. You get 5 at the beginning and you can draw during the game if you need more, you want extras. You can draw up to 8 cards. You can have up to 8 of these cards in your hand at a time. Okay, but we start with 5. Okay, so let's imagine, and you hide them from the others, but for the purpose of showing the game, I'm gonna turn them up so we can see. There's one other thing on the board that's this black, what we call blocking stone, and that comes into play later. I'll show you how that works. Okay, so a move, your turn has a few different parts, okay? The first thing that happens is you can play one of these cards, and that helps you either get onto the board or it can help you do it some other things. The second part of the move has to do with these cards, which you're going to be picking up as you play along the way. And the third part of the move is hopefully moving across the board. So let's talk about the first part, which involves these cards. Okay, so I'm red now at the moment, and I have this card. And you'll notice that the card has a color, and it has a shape. And the first thing we're always going to do is, if you play the card, you don't have to play a card. If you don't play a card, you can draw cards, or you just don't even have to play, and you're going to still do the other parts of the move, which involve these cards down here and moving. Okay, you'll still do that. If you run out of cards at some point, then you automatically draw 3. It doesn't cost you a turn or anything. Okay, so let's say I'm red and I want to use this card. Or let's think about what card I'm going to use. The color has to do with the path, okay? So at the top of each path, there are these 3 marking stones. There's a blocking stone, and okay, so those are the things at the top. And then you also do something at the bottom, which I'll show you in a minute. So let's just say that red is going to use this card. Red plays, red's going to use this card. Red doesn't have any pieces on the board. The first thing you're going to do, though, is you're going to do something with the color. This color corresponds to this path over here. So the first thing you can do is, with the color, you can take one of these away. That's going to be important later. There have to be at least one up there. So if there's only one left, you can't take that one away. You could put one back. Having lots of these here makes things harder for players to move. I'll show you that in a minute. So probably at the beginning you want to take this away. Or you're here at the top of the path, you're using the color, you can take away one of the blocking sticks to the left or the right of the path. When you take these away, they never come back. Okay, so that's what you can do with the color. You do something at the top, either one of this. There can't be more than 3, so if there's 3 there, you can't add another one. Okay, so it has to be 1, 2, or 3. If there's 2, you get to choose. I can add 1 or I can take 1 away. If there's only 1, you have to add 1. Or you do something with the blocking sticks. You take 1 away, if they're still there. Okay, so let me just take one of these away. And now I go to the bottom of the path for the color, and I pick up this card here, if there's a card there. There may not be any more, because people will take them and hold them in their hands or use them. Okay, but I'm going to take this card now. So I'm red, I have here are my cards, and I'm going to take this card. Okay, now I've done the color, I've done something to the path, and now I can use the shape. And what I want to do is get on the board, so I can jump up here, get onto the board. That's not a great place to be at the beginning. It's actually, if this weren't here, this is a pretty good place to be, because if you notice, the very top field on each path is connected all the way down quite a ways, okay? And on the next path, it's connected all the way down. So being at the top is generally a good thing. But if this is here, I'm blocked, I won't be able to move. And there's other things going on. Okay, anyway, so I've used the color on this path. I've used the shape to get on the board. There's another way you can use the shape, and that is, imagine that I were down here. I had, in an earlier move, I had put myself down here. Then I could use the shape to jump up inside the path to a different shape if I want to. So that's what the shape is for. Okay, so now I've played this card, but for now I'm going to just stay here because I'm going to put my piece onto the board. If I'd used a different card, if I'd used this card, then I would have jumped to I could have put a piece onto the circle and so on and so on. Okay, so the other thing is I picked up this card and I could use this if I wanted, but I don't want to use it right now. We're just going to talk about the moves first. Okay, and the last thing is, then potentially I could, the last part of my turn is the moving. So moving happens this way. First of all, there can't be anything in your way. You always stay on the same shape. There can't be anything on the way. And then you can only move out of a path if there are at least as many people in the path as there are stones up here. So there are 3 stones. That means if there were 3 people in the path, then I could think about moving. Let's imagine a little bit later in the game, if there were only 1 here, somebody had taken the other 2 away, then I would say, okay, I'm in the move phase of my turn, and I look at the path. There's only 1 person in the path. There's only 1 stone up here. Then I can move up here. Now, can I move again? Well, I could. There's nothing in my way, but the rule says you only move if there's at least as many people in the path as there are marking stones. Right now, there's only one in the path, and there's 3 up here, so I can't move. Okay, but let's go back and imagine that we have this situation. Okay, now it's yellow's turn. Yellow has different cards that yellow can use. Oh, that's interesting. It has a gray card that it could use, and that could be helpful because let's imagine I'm going to play this card. Okay, so I'm going to play the card, and first I do the color, which is gray. That means something on the first path. So what I can do with the color is I can do first I do something at the top, and that is I take this away, for example. I had another choice. I could have taken this away, but that won't help me. That will help red. So let me take this away. Okay. And now I have done the thing at the top. I go down to the bottom. I pick up this card. That's the top card down there. Add it to my hand. And so now I have used the color. And now I get to use the shape. And so let me put a piece onto the board, onto this square. By the way, if I had a triangle card, you cannot ever knock anyone else out. So the pieces stay on the board. You never knock anyone else. And you can never go to a field that's occupied by somebody else. If somebody else is there, it's blocked to you. But this one's okay because I have used the gray to move on to, I've used the gray, I've done what I needed to with the path, and I've used now the square, which is to move up here. Okay, so now I've come to the last, so now I could, if I wanted, I could use this card. And what this card allows you to do is it allows you to jump to the same field on the next path if you want. And there you don't have to care about the markers. So whenever you use one of these cards, you can do a special thing and you don't have to look at the markers at the top. So this would let me jump to a path upward to the next path if I wanted. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't need to. So that phase of that part of a move is optional. Okay, you don't have to use those cards. You can save them for later. That's what red did, and that's what yellow's going to do now. So I think I'm getting my cards mixed up. We'll see. So this one belongs. I don't remember. Okay. Anyway, those are yellow's cards now. So I play this card. Now I get to use the shape. I've used the shape. I play this. I don't want to use this now because I don't need to, because now I've come to the move phase. And in the move phase, I check how many people are in the path, I check how many markers there are, and then I move to here. So the order is always the same. So you always play the color and shape card first, and then you play an action card if you want to, and then at the very end you move. Okay, so let's say now that it's red's turn again. So I'm going to just keep that card. It's red's turn again, and red has these cards, and it has this thing. And now something interesting is going to happen. So red's first going to think, okay, do I want to play a card? Let's play this card. This is going to be kind of interesting. Let's play this card. So we first do the color on the path. We first change the path, and we do that. I could take one of these away, or I could take one of these away. Let me take this away for now. So I could take either one off, but let me just take this one away. I don't quite know what that's going to do for me yet, but we'll see what happens. Okay, so I've done that at the top here, and now I go down and I pick up this card. I get another one. That's okay. And now I want to use the shape, which will let me put a piece onto the board here. And now I want to use this card. This card can do two different things. It allows you either to remove one of the blocking sticks. This is in biology, this is a sign for inhibition or for blocking something from happening. So this card allows you to remove any stick that you want. For example, let's say I imagine I take this stick away. So I could do that. That's going to help me later. it can also do one other thing. This card can let you bring the blocking marker into play. And the blocking marker is interesting for a couple reasons. You can put it anywhere on the board you want, okay? You can put it in a place that would block another person from moving somewhere. So if I think yellow might be wanting to come up here and jump onto this, I could put it here. Okay, that would just block, and that also blocks me, it blocks everyone, until somebody else plays another of these cards and moves it again. So this one, you can bring the blocking stick onto the board, or you can remove it, or you can move it. And moving it has an interesting effect because when I place it into a path, it counts as one of the figures when I'm looking at the number of markers at the top. So right now, if I put it there in this path, there's 2 markers and 3 figures, and that's going to be interesting because it's going to help me maybe later. Okay, so let's imagine that I do that. All right, let's imagine that I put it there. And so I've used the color and the shape to get onto the board. I've used this to get a second figure on the board. I've used this to move the blocking stone. And now I come to the last part of the move, which is the movement phase. Okay, well, let's see what happens. This piece can't move right now because it's blocked. This piece can move if there's nothing in its way, and if there's enough figures in the field. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 2 markers. So this one can move on. Can it move further? Right now it can't because there's 2 in the path and there's 3 markers at the top. This one is blocked still. But let's imagine a different situation where this is not here. And now when I get to the 3rd phase of my turn, I can check to see if I can move. Can this one move? This one can, I always start at the top and work my way down, or I can decide, if there's some reason that this one is better to move, then I might do that. So, but in any case, the order doesn't matter, but you have to start with one path, move the pieces off that path if you can, and if you can, you have to, and then check the next path and then move any figures that you can onto the next path. So let's do that. Okay, so first of all, we check if the rules have been met. There's 2 markers at the top and there's 1, 2, 3 on the first path. Okay, because this one counts, remember. Okay, so that means this one can move. Okay, now I have to go back and see, are there any other figures in the path that can move? There's 2 in the path, there's 2 markers at the top, so this one can move. By doing that now, there are 3 figures in this path, and now I can say, okay, there's 3, so I can move one of them. I have to decide which one. Right now, again, it's a little better to be higher in the field, and there's nothing in the way. So I can move from here to here with this one. This one is stuck because there's only 2 in the path now and 3 markers at the top. Okay, so that, if someone had already removed one of these in an earlier move, then red would be here, and I could say, okay, that one can move also. And if somebody had removed one of these earlier in the game, then I could pick one of those to move. And you just keep moving. So potentially in one move, you can go a lot of the way across the board. There's one situation to think about, and that is imagine that instead of looking like this, I had figures like this because of earlier moves. Okay, so if my board was set up this way, what you can't do is move this one and then come back and move this one. You have to take care of each path at a time. So this one is stuck, this one can move, but now I can't move up into that because I would be going backwards and picking up a piece. Okay, so that's the basic strategy where the markers at the top and the number of figures in the path allow you to move or not. And again, this one can be brought into the game strategically wherever you need it. So I might want to put it in this path. I wouldn't want to put it there because I would block myself. This one could actually, though, just one other point. Notice that sometimes the paths diverge. So if that were the situation, I couldn't move to this square, but I could move to there. But after that, both of them converge again. So you have to be a little bit careful about that. Okay, so those are the basic principles behind the moves. The markers and the blocking sticks can help you or they can hurt you. This lets you bring this onto the board. And we've talked about this one. We haven't really talked about this. So if it's yellow's turn, let's see what yellow has now. Yellow is over here now. Yellow has one of these and it has these cards like this. So let's see what yellow is going to do. Let's have yellow play this card. And so first you're going to do the color, which is, let's just make it simple for ourselves. We take one, could have also removed the blocks. Don't need you right now. Go down to the bottom. I take this card. This is a good card because it has those different functions. And now, so I've used the color at the top of the path and the bottom of the path. And now I get to use the shape. So yellow comes onto the board. And now I'm finished with this card. And now I can decide, okay, do I want to use one of these cards? Well, I could use this one to take this away. That's going to help me later. I could use this one, and this one lets me jump to the same shape in the next field, which will be up here, for example, with that one. Or I could jump from there to there. I'm not going to do that because I'll be able to move anyway. But let's use this one for now and jump here. There's one other kind of card down here. Let's imagine I had one of these in my hand, and I could use that. What this one lets you do is if you're in a path, you can move to any other shape that's open in that path. This card lets you change shapes up or down, whatever's best. So for example, if yellow wanted to use this, they could use to move up to here, blocking red, and also putting themselves in a favorable position to move several rows at the next time. Or again, you could use to jump here. You could use this one to jump here. Or you could use this one to either bring the blocking stone into play or to remove this, which will be helpful also later. So you have all those options. For now, let's use this one, and let's use it to move from the square up to the triangle here. Okay, so I have used the color to change this path. I've used the shape to jump onto the board here. And now I've done the second thing, which involves the action cards. And I've used this one to change places in the path. And now I've come to the third phase and I ask myself, can I move? I have to start at the left side, look at the first path. Can this figure move? Well, there's two markers, two for players, so this one can move. And it has a choice to either go here or here. Now I go to the next path and say, okay, can any players in this path move? Well, there's 3 players in the path. There's 2 at the top. So this one can move. And now I go back and check, can this one move? This one can also move, 2 and 2. And now I check this path, 2 and 2, so I can choose which one of these moves. Okay, this one is stuck now because there's 1 player in the path and 2 figures at the top. That one's also stuck because there's 1 and 3. And so this is how it works. You just keep going as far as you can. You get as far as you can. And sometimes things are set up so that there's an extra, that you can move pretty far in a single move. There's a couple of more small things to talk about. And here's one thing, for example. Let's just imagine we've been playing for a while, and we'll just put these guys in random places for now. Let's just say this, whatever. And then let's say that these are also now the players have all of their figures on the board. And let's just put this somewhere. Let's put it here just for fun. Let's imagine that it's there. And Okay, so there's a special rule, and that is after you've moved all of your players, if I'm yellow right now, and I've just finished my move, and now the board looks like this. So I've moved everything ahead that I could. Then there's an extra rule called the last figure move. And the last figure move is a jump where this figure gets to move to the next free field that's the same shape on the next path where it's free. So my one move would be to go from, if the board looked like this, I could go from here to here, just slide up a move. But since this is here, that's not free anymore. And in fact, there's no squares in the next path. So I get to jump from here to here. And then I have to stop. Even if I could move on, that's the extra, all the moves have been made. That's just this extra last move. And that means that red is going to be the last figure, maybe next time. We'll see. It may be that red has to go to here and then yellow will still be the past. So, okay, so if I were here and that square were occupied, that field were occupied, then I would jump to here. But it could also look like this. Imagine that the board looked like this. So I can't go here, that's occupied. I can't go here, that's occupied, here or here. I could jump all the way to there on that one move. And so you can strategically, if you know that you're the last person on the board, you can sometimes strategically place your other players so that you can move a really far distance. You might even possibly be able to go, if there are more players, you might even go all the way to the end. If all the squares were occupied, then you could jump out all the way to the end. So you can strategically place this in a way that will help you, or put your other figures on the board in a way that will help you move farther when you get to that point in the game. Okay, so I think that's just about it. A couple of other things. The game, every single thing that happens has a biological meaning. So the paths have a biological meaning. And we've added to the game, we have a little, what we call the biology playbook, where you can look these things up, and it explains a little bit more in detail. Also, these actions have a specific meaning in biology. This is something that improves your position when in a certain function that you're trying to fill. This is something that blocks something from happening, and this is something that helps it happen easier. So these all have a meaning. The only thing is that the meaning changes depending on your path that you're on. So if I play this card on the first path, biologically it means something different than if I play it here. And that's why we have these little codes up here. You see there's numbers here, 11, 12, 13, 21, 22, 23. If I play this on the first path, then that would be the number 13. I can look that up in the playbook and find out what the biological event was. If I play it here, I look up the number 33 and find out what the biological event was. So there's also a counting system. So when one player has finished, and usually the games are really close. So and you won't maybe even know until the very last move who's actually won. There's a counting system that involves each field has a number. So red would have 30 points, yellow would have 20 points plus 9. But we're not quite finished with the counting yet, because the cards in your hand also have points attached to them. So these cards, if you have some in your hand and don't use them, you get a plus point for each card. And these cards, if you have them in your hand and haven't used them, you get a minus point. And so you use that to figure out where you're at in the game. So it's good to maybe sometimes pick up cards, 2 or 3 or 3 cards, up to 3 cards if you're in the middle of the game, because you need some. But it's also good to play them because if you don't play them, then they may count against you. These are pretty powerful, and that means that if you don't have to use them, that you get plus points for them. So that's the game, and as I said, you don't have to know any biology to play it, but if you want to, you can use the biology playbook to learn a little bit more about all these steps and what happens when you're using one of these action cards down here. Sorry about that. That's our game, and we hope you enjoy it.